I'm excited for this hour. Oh my gosh. So, okay, I have so many surprises for you today. Just wait. Here comes the first one. First of all, Carrie Cardinelli, partner, chief content officer at MEA and MC for this event. And guess what? We're having a fully global day today. My first surprise is, are you ready? Chip Conley on vacation, y'all, in a field in Iceland at the foot of a waterfall. Welcome.
Waterfall.
Look at this view, everybody.
To the waterfall. To the
So,
waterfall. Hello,
Chip,
everybody.
we have rituals on these events, and one of them is we love to talk about where we are in the world. So before everybody posts where you are in the world, some of you are doing it. Chip's going to post the name of where he is because no one can pronounce it. Okay.
There you go. That's where I am. That is where I am. I can't pronounce any of that. I can't spell it either, but oh my God, this is one of my favorite places in the world where I'm sitting right now. I did actually do a little Instagram video of it earlier today. And God, Iceland, this is the best time of year to be in Iceland. We're going to talk about awe today. I am full of awe, truly. And it was interesting when we get Tererai on the phone, on the call here. She has the book, Dacker Keltner's book, Awe, right behind her in Zimbabwe. So what an experience. Terry, go ahead and
all right, well,
introduce
let's just
our
move this
esteemed
along.
guest.
So your second surprise is all the way from Zimbabwe. Tererai Trent is here.
Woo!
From Zimbabwe to Iceland. And ladies and gentlemen, we also have in the house Liz Gilbert from, take it away, Liz is in.
I don't want to brag, but I'm in New Jersey, baby.
Yes. Don't want to brag, but New Jersey wins every time, as we decided.
New Jersey wins every time.
So I'm gonna turn the stage over, but we're just so honored that Tererai and Liz are going to teach together October 12th to 17th at our Santa Fe campus. And Liz, you need no introduction. If you haven't read Eat, Pray, Love, I don't know who you are. I don't know, but
that's not even her best book.
Right? Big Magic,
That's
Letters from Love. You are a extraordinary force of nature, and Tererai is one of the most internationally recognized voices for quality education, women's empowerment. She's Oprah's favorite guest. She's done extraordinary work to help over 6,000 children in Zimbabwe so far, champion universal access to global education. This is going to be a beautiful conversation, everyone. So there's a lot of you here. We do love the chat, but no, I can't possibly read all the things you're going to put in there for questions. So we're going to save that. So you're going to have a nice, just pull up a cozy chair from wherever you are in the world or sit in the meadow. And about halfway through or so, Chip will open it up for questions. And we like to be with you. We want to see you. So when we ask for questions, we're hoping you'll be brave enough to go down to the bottom to the reactions button and click raise your hand. Don't do it right now when it's time. And then in the meantime, make sure your mute button's on because, we don't need to hear the doorbell and the dogs. We love you, but we'll hear you later. So with that, I'm going to head out, and Chip and Liz and Tererai, thank you so much.
Oh my gosh. Well, what an honor. Tererai, Liz and I had a Zoom call about a month and a half ago, and it was such a beautiful experience because we were talking about the upcoming workshop, October 12th through 17th at our Santa Fe campus. But at the end of the hour-long talk, I just felt that much more clear that their message is so perfectly suited for people in midlife and beyond. And so I want to start with a provocative question, which is, big magic is something that, Liz, your book is profound about the idea of how do we awaken magic in our life. What is it that's magical about each other? Liz, what do you think is magical about Tererai?
Oh.
And Tererai, what do you think is magical about Liz?
I have to go first on this.
Yes, you do.
I was hoping that I would get a chance to exalt. I met Tererai Trent at a women's conference in Arizona several years ago, and somebody introduced us and said, "There's a remarkable woman here, and you should know who she is." Tererai Trent was raised in extreme poverty in colonial Zimbabwe, in misogyny, under the rule of colonialism, under patriarchy, without the benefit of education, married off at a young age. Her father married her off at a young age, a mother as a teenager, a mother of four by the time she was 20. Her story is absolutely impossible because from that, she she became a doctor. She she got her doctorate. She went and got herself educated, starting with a high school education by mail, and ending up following her dreams and her passions impossibly all the way to a doctorate, and then completing the dream by the vision of returning home to Zimbabwe to bring education to more children and to more girls. There is no universe in which that can happen. That's why Tererai Trent is magical. There is no pathway to where she got. Um, that pathway was something that she created in a world that makes such a pathway impossible. Um, and and yet she did it, and she did it through phenomenal determination, through the help of a lot of people, but also honestly, and I think Tererai would agree with this, through a certain amount of magic, through a certain amount of calling upon ancestors to lead her, through dream work, through envisioning, through a word that has become so degraded in our culture, but when used in this form is stupendous, through the manifestation of a dream that she refused to allow to die. And then her magic became such that she was like, well, now that I've cleared this path for myself, let me make sure that others, that the world is made an easier place for others. She's one of my heroes, one of the great heroes. I feel so, but she's also my friend, and she's also just a delight of a human being to be in the presence of, and somebody who's so much fun. And so to come through everything that she's come through, and to remain joyful and full of light and pleasure is I think the highest magic of all. So I could say more, but I want to hear why Tererai thinks I'm magic. So I'll turn it over.
Oh, Tererai, we got you unmute. So let's unmute you. There we go.
Oh, how do I follow
Perfect.
that? Liz, you are one of the magical people in the world. I remember meeting you, and there was this feeling like, Tererai, I don't know where you've been, but I know there is more to you. We only need to give ourselves permission. And you use that word, permission. We have permission to mold ourselves. No matter at what age, we have permission to be creative, to be who we want to be. We cannot erase the challenges in our lives. We cannot erase the marks in our life, but we can move forward with dignity and boldness. That's what, whenever I think about that, I think about Liz Gilbert. You are the magical woman. You are.
Well, you both
And
are. And go ahead, Tererai.
I just said, and I love you, Liz. You know I
Oh,
do.
well, there's clearly a love language going on here between the two of you. And I want to explore what Liz has done with her love letters, the letters from love. And so here's a question for both of you. Liz, talk about what prompted you to do the letters from love and what they are, And, the idea of dear love, what would you have me know today? And then Tara, one of the things that you said is there's a great hunger in the world for people to understand what's meaningful to them. And so the question that you need to ask is, what would break your heart? And that will help you to understand what you truly love. So I'd love to hear from both of you on this. Maybe you go first, Liz.
Thank you, Chip and Tara. Thank you for those beautiful words and for our friendship. And I love you. And Chip, thanks for gathering us here and for all you do. So I started this project on Substack. Not everybody is familiar with Substack yet, but a lot of writers are using it as an alternative to social media because social media has become venomous fanged snake that is harming so many people in so many ways. And in many ways, Substack is actually it's a reversal of technology. It's just an email newsletter. It's essentially a blog. We're going back to blogging in order to get off social media. And I started a Substack newsletter called Letters from Love, where I'm teaching people this practice that I've been doing for almost 25 years, almost every day, where I write myself a letter every day, every morning from unconditional love. And I ask the spirit of unconditional love, what would you have me know today? I did this in order to combat my own depression, my own shame, my own fear, my own loneliness and despair, my own addiction. And most of all, to combat the terrible inner critic and self-talk of negativity that in this culture we apparently think is normal. Oops,
Sorry about that.
somebody's got a hot mic.
Yes.
And now I'm teaching people how to do it. So every week on this newsletter, I share one of the letters that I wrote to myself that week from unconditional love, and then I invite a special guest. Sometimes people who are really well known, sometimes just remarkable people I meet in my travels, sometimes children, sometimes people with mental disabilities, sometimes like just people who I see as having light in them. I ask them to write a letter to themselves from unconditional love and then share what the experience was. So Tererai did one of our first ones. And now we have 100,000 people on this project following this and writing themselves these letters from love every day. It's the most, what breaks my heart is the way that is the brutality and the mercilessness with which people treat themselves. And I always say that, true recovery and healing begins when you drop the knife you're holding to your own throat. And nobody has ever, I've been abused. Nobody's ever harmed me the way that I've harmed me. And so this is a project to help undo that. So that's why I do it.
Mm, mm.
Beautiful.
Wow. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. You asked about hunger, which leads us to love. I always talk about two kinds of hungers in our life. There is the little hunger. The little hunger is all about immediate gratification. I want it now. We are always comparing ourselves with others. We can never satisfy the little hunger because it's based on I want. It's never based on needs. And then there is the great hunger, which is the greatest of all hungers. It is hunger where we seek meaning in our lives, hunger where we see our communities, where we see our friends, we see our families for who they are. I always talk about to see is not just the eyes to see, but to see is to really go deep into our souls and be able to see the other person. I come from this culture where when strangers meet, the first one would say, Sawubona in greeting, which means, I see you. And the other person would respond and say, Ngikona, which means, I'm here to be seen. I'm here to be seen with my vulnerability. I'm here to be seen with my pain. I'm here to be seen with my soul wounding, but I'm also here to be seen with my dignity. That's the great hunger that enables us to see others. But how do we then find this hunger, the hunger that says there is more to life? Despite the fact that I'm old, I'm 65 and beyond, this is just the beginning of my joy. By asking the question that Liz has just said, what breaks my heart? It is in those moments of our brokenness, in those moments when we feel this emptiness in our world, those are the moments that we begin to see something, a yearning in our heart, a yearning that wants to make that difference. That's the great hunger. And that's what has led me never to see the difficulties, to recognize the difficulties, but to say, I have to be bigger than these difficulties. I have to give myself permission to be more creative, to create something that I can look and something that I can pass on to this generation and the generations to come.
On that point, what a beautiful statement, Tererai. In the United States, and you spend part of your time there, we do not have an elder culture. We have an elderly culture. People are scared of becoming elderly, but other than in Washington, politically, we don't have much of an elder culture. And there's a beautiful Malidoma Some, who I just think is, unfortunately he passed, but his philosophy and some of his writing about the African perspective on elders is really interesting. What piece of advice would you give to American culture if you had that opportunity about how we could create a more intergenerationally collaborative America? What would you recommend?
I might not have the best recommendation, but let me say, I come from wisdom whisperers. I come from the librarians of our memories, the elders of the village, the ones who
Love that word.
The ones who have taught us Ubuntu, which is I am because we are, since we are, therefore I am. I come from a place where the elders would sit around an open fire and would tell us about their soul wounds. And they would say, you might have come from these wombs. You might think these wombs are wounded wombs. You might think you come from trauma, but let me say to you, you come from wisdom. So I always tell this story of my great-grandmother being born into this race that I call the race of poverty. And she's running so fast in this race of poverty, the race of a colonial system that never valued her as a Black woman, the race of early marriage, the race of abuse. She's running and she grabs this baton, the baton that shapes this race, and she passes on this baton to my grandmother. My grandmother passes, she runs this race of early marriage, illiteracy, and she passes baton to my mother. My mother grabs this baton and this ugliness, and she's running and she passes on the baton to me. And I grab this baton of early marriage, the baton of a colonial system, the baton of all the ugliness, illiteracy, and I'm running with this baton. But my grandmother would say, in the passing of this baton, there's also the passing of wisdom. Don't always think about the ugliness of this baton, but also think about the wisdom that is being passed through this baton. And hence, as individuals, we reach a point where we decide, do I want to carry on this baton and pass it on to the next generation? And I said, it's just bullshit. I'm not going to pass on this ugly baton. I have to grab the wisdom and pass on the beauty that comes with this baton. That's the wisdom from the elders. And that's what I can say to those who might feel they don't have the elders, the wisdom whisperers in their community to say, yes, we can find wisdom whisperers within our own communities, and we can decide to pass on the wisdom to this generation and generations to come.
So beautiful. Thank you so much. We just had our second Black Modern Elder workshop with exclusively people of African descent. And I was able to be the exclusively for part of the workshop there as the only Caucasian. And I was so interested to see how much ancestors, calling in the ancestors, was part of the workshop. We've had over 150 workshops at MEA, week-long workshops. But in our standard workshop, people are not calling in their ancestors. But I see that so built into the culture, not just African culture, but the Latino culture, Asian culture as well. So thank you very much. Liz, how would you say that you have cultivated and harvested your wisdom over the course of time? A hard and a big abstract question. And let me give you a moment to think about it. I like to say that our painful life lessons are the raw material for our future wisdom. So how do you see wisdom? It's such a let me also say, anybody who says I am a wise person, you want to walk the other direction. Because humility is built into wisdom for sure. But if you looked at it as something that's abstract and something that you have had the opportunity to possibly develop over time, how are you a wiser person today than you were 20 years ago?
Because I've been in Earth School. And you all are too, right? I mean, my personal theology, it's not personal to me, but it's what I adapt, and what makes sense to me is that we're in Earth School here, that Earth is a school for souls, and a very, very, very accelerated one. I had a friend, an elderly neighbor, who used to say to me, God gives the brightest students the toughest assignments. It's like but if you really want to advance, you come here to this planet, and you'll be given lots and lots and lots of opportunities in your curriculum for evolution, which often come through failure and through doing it wrong, right? Doing it wrong till you learn how to do it better. And consequences have been a great teacher for me. I wanted to circle back, if I may, to this point about ancestors and calling in ancestors. The Dalai Lama, when he first came to the United States, in the very first meeting he had with North Americans, 30 years ago or 40 years ago, whenever it was, a long time ago, before anybody knew who he was, Sharon Salzberg, the great meditation teacher, was in the room, and reports that somebody asked him, what is your guidance for people on how to deal with self-hatred? And he had to speak through his interpreter for 20 minutes before he understood the question. It was so foreign to him that he kept thinking that it was a mistranslation. He kept saying he kept thinking he didn't understand. He was like, who is the person that you hate? Who is the enemy that you're struggling with? And the people in the room who were contemporary North Americans kept saying, myself, myself. And he was so horrified to discover that every single person in the room except him understood that question and that meaning. And he said at the end of the conversation, I thought I really understood the mind, but I find this very troubling. Is this all of you? You all have this? And everyone's like, yeah, everyone, we all have this here. We all have this great self-hatred. This is a culture that teaches self-hatred. The troubling thing for people from my culture and your culture, Chip, if I can speak for us, is it's difficult sometimes for us to call in our ancestors, because our ancestors also hated themselves. and our ancestors often hated their children. The Dalai Lama, when he was first trying to teach people how to love themselves, said, treat yourself the way your mother would have treated you, until he found out what some of our mothers were like here. And then he was like, okay, don't scratch that, no fault of their own. They were also raised by people there, this culture for some reason has metastasized in such a way that there is so much interior violence. There is so much criticism. There's so much perfectionism. You are seen as a commodity. This is a commoditized culture. This is a capitalist culture. You're seen only for what you can produce and how good you are, right? So, or what you can make, and how much you earn, and how, this is all the status. So for many people from white capitalist contemporary culture, ancestor work is troublesome because they can't find that lineage of love. They can't find that lineage of acceptance. They can't find that lineage. And so in my case, what I've done is I draw upon a broader concept of what ancestry is. And I look for the wisdom teachers. And so I've become a student of anybody who's got wisdom to offer me, because I couldn't necessarily find it in my family line. There's a certain amount of survival that has happened, but I haven't been able to look to my own, necessarily the elders in my own family for that. And that's how I became a student. And I've tried, including finding Tererai Trent. I've gone and sat at the feet of anybody in the world who has something to offer. Where I've found it in our culture interesting is in 12-step recovery. I'm an addict in recovery. And those rooms, that is a lineage that's been passed down for almost 100 years now, of a wisdom tradition where you get a sponsor, there's an elder who is teaching you these steps. And I've found that it's what we call old timers in the rooms have been the greatest teachers for me of a very particular kind of wisdom. And it reminds me of, there's now I can't come up with his name, but there's a great spiritual teacher who said that the 12 steps of recovery are America's only but extremely significant contribution to world spirituality. So that's where I find it. And so if you don't have it in your own lineage, the lineage exists, and you can find it, you can find it elsewhere. And I think sometimes you have to.
Beautiful.
That's yeah. Oh gosh, you just
You want to
reminded
add
me.
anything, Tererai?
Liz, you just reminded me of what the Native Americans have always said, and I think many indigenous populations, they also believe in the same spirituality. Humankind is not woven the web of life. We are but one thread within it. Whatever we do to the web, we do it ourselves. All things are bound together. All things are connected. Our very survival is connected to the survival of others. And I think that's ancestors' wisdom that we get from indigenous populations. And it also reminds me, while African wisdom is beautiful, but we all come with our own challenges, and we all come with, gosh, when I tried to think about my own dreams in life, I was selfish. So we all come with our selfishness. I remember my mother saying to me, write down your dreams because you want to change the trajectory of your life. And I wrote, I want to go to America, and I want to have an undergraduate degree, I want to have a master's, and I want to have a PhD. And my mother said to me, is that all? And I said, yes. And I come from this culture where when a child is born, the female elders of the village, the ones that I'm calling the wisdom whisperers, the librarians of our memories, they would gather around an infant when a child is born, and they would snip out the umbilical cord and tie that umbilical cord in the mother's old dress and bury the umbilical cord deep down in the ground with the belief that when this child grows, wherever they go, the umbilical cord will always remind them of the importance of their birthplace. So my mother said, write down your dreams and bury them. Bury and plant are the same. Despite the challenges in your life, despite the abuse, these dreams will always remind you of the importance of who you are. So I wrote those 4 dreams, and my mother said, I see you only have personal dreams, personal goals, to go to America, to have an undergraduate, to achieve a master's, and to achieve and to earn a PhD. Tererai, your dreams in this life will always have greater meaning when they are tied to the betterment of your community. I had no idea what my mother was saying, but I now realize that my mother was speaking to that language, to that indigenous language, was speaking to that which the Native Americans have always taught us: humankind is not woven the web of life. It was by adding the 5th dream. When I come back, I want to improve the lives of women and girls in my community so they don't have to go through what I had gone through, meaning living our Ubuntu. We are because of others. And I think that's great wisdom that we even gain from the Western world.
Beautiful. While we're on the topic of dreams, our workshop in the fall, in October 12th to 17th, is really about how do we have the right to awaken our dreams and to tap into magic. I'd love to, Liz, hear your thoughts on that to start with. And then Tara, we will go to you. And then at this point, we're going to open it up for people to start raising hands. So in order to do that, we go to the reaction button at the bottom, and you click on that, and you'll see raise hand. And I would suggest you raise your hand sooner rather than later. And Diane Johnson, I saw your question about wisdom and cultural appropriation. I hope you will put your hand up ASAP so I can call on you. Let's go to Liz first.
I always laugh when I hear the term
the
reaction button, because I feel like for most of my life, that's what I have been. Go to the reaction button. I'm trying to not go to the reaction button. You know, I'm so looking forward to teaching. Tererai and I have taught before together, and oh boy, it's beautiful. It's beautiful. And I'm so looking forward to being able to spend so many days with people. You asked, do we have the right to awaken our dreams? Yes, of course. We have, but I always begin my workshops by dismantling this one word that I feel like is a real obstacle for a lot of people in this culture, and that word is purpose. And there has been this we've been taught again and again that you have to have a purpose-driven life, and that word has become a word that has caused a lot of people a lot of pain and a lot of shame. And there's the way the culture has taught it is that, you know, each person is born with a unique purpose. It's your job to figure out at a very young age, hopefully by the time you're 10 or 11, what that is. And then you must become the master of that thing, and you must study and become completely devoted to that thing. And then you have to become the best at it in the entire world. Our culture is all about that. You have to become the best at it. You have to monetize it. If it's not monetized, it's of no value. It's not enough for you to monetize it. You also have to create opportunities for others around it so that their lives are changed by it. You have to then change the world. I mean, this is literally what each one of us is taught, is that you each have to
only that.
No pressure, no pressure, right? And it's not enough to do all of that and change the world. You also have to leave a legacy. So it's not even over when you're dead, right? Like there's no relief from it. And so, you know, this sort of pressure cooker of expectation that is very egoic, and very much about like I'm going to leave a mark on the world. If I haven't left a mark on the world, I've somehow failed. I think if we look at the state of the world these days, I think the world is very much asking us to stop marking it. Like maybe we've left enough of a mark on the world, right? So the very first thing that I try to do anytime that I teach in Tererai, and we're on the same page about this, is to begin by trying to ease off of the purpose anxiety. Because that is a really big obstacle to being able to actually hear where life is calling you. Because if you're tangled up in purpose, you can't even hear it. And it may be a much quieter call and a much softer call. So I think I've said enough for now. I'll turn it over to Tererai or to you, Chip, if you want to direct the next question.
Tererai, what are your thoughts on
I'm
tapping
still,
magic and
I'm
dreams?
still, I'm still tickled by Liz's expression of pressure cooker of expectations.
Mm,
Yeah, yeah. Yes, we have the right to awaken our dreams, and I agree with Liz. We also have to give ourselves permission, because sometimes we can say, yes, I have a right. Is it self-driven right? Is it societal right? But if you give yourself permission to really look deep within yourself and give yourself to love yourself and to say, yes, this is the dream I want. Yeah. Yeah.
Beautiful. Thank you. Thank you so much. Let's go to some questions. I'm going to start with you, Diane, just because you actually put yours in the chat to start with. And Diane actually was one of our faculty members at our Black MEA workshop in Baja recently. Second time she's done that.
Right.
Diane, what's your question? What's your question?
So it is relationship to Elizabeth's amazing point about finding wisdom in other places. And so I'd like to hear from both Elizabeth and Tanya about, but this balance of finding other wisdom and cultural appropriation, right? This notion within white dominant culture, colonialism that has this dynamic of everything that I want, I can take, right? And so to speak to that along with this notion of cultural humility, right? So that's my question, and this is amazing. This is just so fantastic. Right. Thanks.
I thank you for introducing that, and it's so important, and I want to start by acknowledging where I have done that, and acknowledging the fact that, for instance, right? For instance, Eat, Pray, Love. I look at that book now, 20 years later, in a different cultural climate, and I'm like, huh. Huh. Some of that I wouldn't do now, like some of that I wouldn't do now. And I certainly felt extremely privileged to just waltz around India and, go to an ashram and pick up what I wanted out of that culture, and go to Indonesia and speak pretty confidently in my book about what Balinese culture is all about, and be like, yeah, I went there for 4 months. I can tell you what this is all about, and I say this with a smile because I do love and accept myself, at the same time as learning, because I can't learn if I'm not in loving acceptance, right? If I crumble under shame, then I'm not of any use to myself or to anybody, right? So I say, like, I don't think that's a book that I would have necessarily written that way. And yet it is so strange too, because there are also elements of destiny that are beyond my understanding, that include that when I did go to Bali and I met Katutlier, the medicine man, he told me that I was supposed to be there. And he told me not only that, but that he read my palm and he said, "You're going to come back here and become my student." And I followed that instruction, but that was an invitation. And that was an invitation. And I think it's important not to go places where you're not invited. It's important to go places with humility. And at this point in my life, I'm much more interested in using whatever platform I have to allow other people to explain what their cultures are like, rather than me being the one to go on a tourism event and come back and be like, "Here's what I learned." Like I would much rather do what I'm doing. Like I've had this project for several years now on Instagram called the Onward Book Club, where I just use we celebrate and spotlight and and bring on Black female authors to talk about their work. I'd much rather interview somebody about her work than become the translator of it, which I think is the mistake that I made in the past. But thank you really so much for bringing that up. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Diane. Tara, you want to add anything, or should we go to the next question? Because we have a lot of questions right now.
Let's go to the next question.
Okay, let's go to Kat, please. What's your question, Kat? Good to see you.
Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for this opportunity to be here with you and to be with everybody that's on the screen. My question is around acknowledging that some of the things that we're talking about, I have found that as I age, just naturally kind of fall off, and that other things naturally seem to come in, and that there's something, I think, inherent in aging and with what goes and what comes that is so beautiful and so natural. And I'm relating this to when you're talking about purpose and that whole striving mentality that I grew up in America as part of the culture. So I'm just wondering how you all talk about, what do you see how aging is influencing just the purity of aging is influencing your experience
Beautiful.
Of how you move in the world.
Thank you. Thank you. Tara, you want to go first on that one? This one.
And for me, with aging, there's a boldness that comes with aging. There's an I don't care attitude, what others think about me. There's the groundedness that comes with aging. There's beauty. Every day as I do my writing, I feel more freedom. I feel more unsilenced, because I think with being young, there's a lot of noise that goes on, and there's a lot of silencing. And aging is giving me the freedom to be who I really want to be. I don't know if that answers your question, but I just,
it does.
Where I am right now.
Beautiful. You are right. Yes, you're seasoned. There's you're not a piece of raw sushi. Liz, how about you?
Yeah, I would say that the greatest thing that's happening to me is the stuff I don't care about anymore. And I almost would say can't care about anymore. Like I just can't. There's a sense that I can't give that much energy anymore to these things that used to seem extremely important. There isn't enough time to be that concerned about things that I used to be very concerned about. That's why I shaved my head. I can't anymore have a project on the top of my head that I have to give my money and attention to anymore. I just can't. I don't care. I can't care. There's too much other stuff that I want to give my life to. So, yeah, that's a small example, but I never would have done this at 25.
And we love it. We love you. So thank you. We're going to go to Jenny. Jenny, what's your question?
Oh, hold on.
We hear you.
Dr. Trent talked about the baton passing from ancestors, from generations, and that I heard about the pain in it, but I heard that you also, that there's this wisdom in that baton that you were able to see and to really take to heart. And when Liz was talking about the challenge with finding that in our own ancestors, I was wondering if you had any insight into how we can find that part of the baton. How, like, it can be hard when there's a lot of pain within it and a lot of hiding or silence in it. And so any insight into, when we're doing that kind of generational work, how we find the beauty and the wisdom from our ancestors more readily?
And for those who have done work with epigenetics, they do understand that there is that intergenerational DNA or genes that are passed from one generation to the next generation. Some of it can silence us, but some of it can give us freedom, some of it. But the question that I've always asked myself, what silences me? What are these soul wounds that have been passed from one generation to me? Am I the soul wounds? And by recognizing and confronting those soul wounds, I think there is a healing that takes place, because I do that writing every time. And I'm always asking, if it silences me, then I remain falling down, and then I'm passing it on to the next generation. Do I want to do that? That question alone invokes wisdom to say no. But when we don't confront these questions, then we numb our trauma, we numb our pain. Then we resort to these little hungers. We are self-judging and doing all these kinds of things. We might end up sometimes doing drugs. We might end up sometimes finding joy and happiness in wrong places. But when you confront that which pains you, then you are able to find your own healing. I hope that makes sense.
Beautiful. I'm going to keep going if you're okay with that, Liz. Unless you'd like to visit. I just want to make sure we get to more people. Let's go to Art. Art, take a seat.
Hey, yeah, and thank you, Chip, very much for these conversations. They're fantastic and lovely to be here with you guys. Question, it's for both of you, but Liz, you talked about this purpose becoming Americanized and overdone. And I've been living in that the first half of my life. I'm out of that now, but I still, coming back to Tererai's or Dr. Trent's comment about being in the community. So there's still something about really fulfillment or happiness or the dreams that are really meaningful about having something broader than myself as well. How do you balance that letting go of that, I'll call it purpose prison that I've put myself in, and still finding something that's bigger than myself to support, to give myself to?
That's such a beautiful question, Art. Thank you so much. Yeah, giving up on the purpose-driven life doesn't mean giving up on life, or on showing up or on caring. It does mean rescinding, I think, the egoic necessity to be important. And I think that's something that it's good to step back from, especially if you have held a lot of privilege. It's like, okay, I don't need to be the important person in this story. But where can I be of service? I think it's a difference between purpose and service. And I think for me, I feel like I want the second half of my life to be entirely about service. And a question that I find that I actually suggest this a lot to my sponsees. I'm going back to 12-step recovery because it's the closest thing I can talk to about lineage is, when they're complaining about something in their life, so much of recovery from addiction is about the end of selfishness and self-centeredness. What Tererai would talk about, the small hungers, wanting to get what you want now, wanting 5 of them, wanting it in blue, wanting to, like just wanting to get your needs met in this way. A question that I often ask, because it was asked of me once, is how would the situation look different if you saw it as an act of service? And I try to go through my day that way now. Like, how would this day look different for me if I saw this day as an act of service? How would this family reunion that I'm going to look different if I saw it as an act of service? How would I be in my neighborhood if I saw it as an act of service? And it changes. How would this conversation be different if I saw it as an act of service? And so it decentralizes my always hungry ego. And then I find that there's so many ways to be like, and there's so many small ways to be of service. I was at somebody's party this weekend, at somebody's wedding, and I saw that there was somebody who needed a ride to the train station, and I just left the wedding early and drove her to the train station. Like, this is not a purpose-driven life. This is a service-driven life, like, let me just do this for you. I have a car. I'm here. It's a 40-minute drive. No problem. How would this wedding look different if I saw my presence here as an act of service? So that's what I would suggest. That's how I'm trying to do it. Thank you so much.
If someone could put into the chat the Rabindranath Tagore poem or short poem about service and joy, it's a spectacular gem. I think people would enjoy it. Maybe somebody could actually find it. Let's go to Santa Fe, where we actually have a workshop going on. We have workshops going on both in Santa Fe and in Baja right now. This is a women's workshop in Santa Fe, women's health workshop, with my co-founder, Christine Sperber, there. Take it away, Christine.
Hello. We are so thrilled to think about this conversation continuing right here in this space. We've been having an incredibly important conversation right now. Here's some of my compadres and co-facilitators, but this is the same room where you will be. And I just can't thank the two of you enough for coming and being part of Santa Fe and sharing yourselves with MEA. Chip, good job, buddy. Good job. I don't know that we have a question. We just wanted to kind of connect the spaces.
Oh, beautiful. That's beautiful. Well, hello, everybody there. All these lovely women who are all connecting to each other and talking about health and menopause and just, what it means to be a woman in midlife and beyond. So thank you.
Much more. I have to say, this feels like, of 150 cohorts that we've run this week, feels like one of the most important ones we have ever here. Most voices we've called together. Are there any questions before I let them go?
Just that we're so excited to have you here in this space. 2 months.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Thank you, guys. Great to see you. And I want to give a big call out to Henry, one of our MEA alums, who found the quote, the Rabindranath Tagore quote. I used to use this at Joie de Vivre. My company was called, boutique hotel company called Joie de Vivre. I slept and dreamt that life was joy. I awoke and saw that life was service. I acted and behold, service was joy. Beautiful. Let's go to Jack Williamson, another one of our MEA alums up in Boulder, if I'm not mistaken. Is that right, Jack? Can't hear you, Jack.
I was so taken with your comment about wisdom whisperers. And also later on, you spoke about as you age, that boldness becomes clearer to you. And I'm comparing whispers to boldness, and they don't seem to go hand in hand for me. And I'm thinking about a former Supreme Court Justice from Minnesota, a Black Justice Page, who he and his wife coined the phrase, never whisper justice. And I'm wondering, as we get older, I'm thinking maybe we should never whisper wisdom. I'm wondering what you think about that.
So when just hearing from my grandmother when she talks about the wisdom whisperer, it means it's your physical being, your soul that speaks to that wisdom without even uttering a word. When I'm standing in front of you, do I make you feel like a champion? Do I make you feel like a giant? Or I make you feel small? That's the wisdom whispering that I'm talking about. The ability to be, but
yeah,
to
maybe
be,
there are different textures to wisdom, maybe, huh?
I think so.
Okay.
Let's go. Thank you, Jack. Great to hear from you. I'm going to try to get two more in. So Sembe, we may not get to you in Japan, although we'll see. Jeanette, do you have a quick question? Go for it.
Yes, hello. Can you hear me? Hi,
Yes.
this is fantastic. I will try. First trip, I'll be in Iceland in about 10 days up in the Western Fjords.
Oh, my.
With good Icelandic friends. I'm so excited. Anyway, I wrote this down because I want to be very precise here. Sometimes quiet instincts, thoughts, ideas are like very loose roots in the ground, and the societal winds of doubt and questioning can blow them away. And it's a constant battle for me to find that place of trust and agency in myself. A younger, doubting self is always asking, but is this right? Is this okay? Is this true? How do you quell that constant questioning? I'm a professional singer. I can think I'm not auditioning for Broadway, but I don't really want to. I want to sing my Joni Mitchell but it's this constant I hear what you're talking about in terms of how to the wisdom whisperers, the AA, the love letters, but it's like scratching an itch. And when that itch is scratched, it is so hard. The Dalai Lama story is just phenomenal to me because
Jeanette,
go for it.
I'm gonna see if there's an answer to that question first, if that's okay.
Totally.
Yeah, Jeanette, thank you. I think that the word that pops out in your question that I find troublesome is quell. How do I quell that frightened younger voice? I'm not interested in quelling any part of me anymore, and I'm not interested in battling and silencing the parts of me who are frightened and insecure and full of doubt. I'm interested in mothering them.
Thank you.
Beautiful,
And
beautiful.
in mothering them and giving them a safe home, they settle, and then I can do my bold work.
Thank you. I even wrote holding their hand. Is that something you do?
Yeah, that'll do it. Better than quelling.
Ursula, give us a 30-second question.
Yes, thank you very much. Well, first of all, thank you for being here. Having had an awakening through the writing of my book, Wisdom in Being, the journey embodied self-compassion as a gateway to self-love. How do you see it possible to have self-compassion become a legacy of resilience in an intergenerational practice so that we can empower families and communities?
Tererai, do you want to take that last question?
So I'm thinking that self-compassion, to be able to love yourself, to have empathy, I think that's resilience, because then you can pass on that empathy, that compassion to your kids. Remember, your children in this generation and generations to come, they watch us. They watch us every time. It's not what we say. And it goes back to the wisdom whisperer that I talked about. Even up to now, I hear the whispers of my late great-grandmother. I hear their words. They guide me every day. They whisper to me, and I hear my late mother. Those teachings that they left, the self-compassion that they left, I hear that, and I pass those whispers to my grandkids. So it's important because I'm not only passing the whispering, but I'm passing the I am passing their compassion. I am passing their wisdom. I am passing their dreams and my dreams, and we live to that because it makes us create a better world for ourselves and for the next generation.
Oh, what a beautiful way to finish our hour together. We don't just pass our genes along; we pass our character along. I think that's what I'm hearing. It's more than just biological. It's emotional and sociological. So, Liz and Tererai, thank you so much. I am the fortunate person who's going to be co-leading that workshop with you in October. It'll fill up very soon. For those of you who are thinking about it, act relatively soon, I would say. And this is recorded, so it will be sent out to people. Feel free to share it with friends. And I just want to say huge love. I am in this place full of awe, but I'm a bit distracted because I'm in awe of the two of you. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Chip, for coming in on vacation in Iceland. Thank you, Tererai, coming in from Zimbabwe. Thank you, Elizabeth from New Jersey. And thank all of you for joining us from all over the world. The recording will be prepared and sent out very soon, and we hope to see you again. And we'll send you out with a little more magical music.